Brokers Alliance and the National Insurance Clearinghouse present the Business Insurance Zone, a Bravo video event. Broadcasting in HD 1080p on Vimeo, YouTube, the Insurance Newsnet, Agent Navigator, BrokersAlliance.com, and on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the Insurance Forum. And now your host, the whiz of the biz, Steve Savant. Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that spotlights insurance in your practice, keeps you up to speed on insurance news and products, features insurance strategies from top advisors. Get in the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
Our email address is thebiz@brokersalliance.com. And you can also call us at 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, for any quotes or questions you have on life insurance, DI, LTC, annuities, and group pensions. And remember, I'm not a tax or legal advisor, so before moving forward with any of the strategies that we talk about on the show, always check in with your CPA and your attorney. And if you're a FINRA licensed and you have to play with a broker-dealer, always touch base with your compliance officer before moving forward with any of our ideas. Today, and we've had Tom on before, today I want to introduce Tom Anderson, Director of Sales Training for AG Life Companies. Welcome back again.
Always a pleasure. It's great to be here.
We're talking about sales training with Tom Anderson, the lost art, and I'm talking lost, and guess what? We have found it. We kind of like, I remember when I was lost something in grade school, I had to go to the lost and found, right? And so now I had to go to the bowels of the basement of AG, right? American General, to find a sales guy, because there's not many of you guys floating around anymore.
I am down where the boiler room is.
I mean, I'm saying, and what we've done is we brought Tom out of his cave, basically, and we're going to be talking today about objection resolution. Now, if you've missed any of the prior shows, which you should go back, because we talked about one about prospecting, keeping prospects in the pipeline, you should hit that show. That's a great show. And the other show is referrals, and generally that's a kind of a tabooed subject, how we're going to do it, but that was a hot show. So if you need to do that, hop back out on our website. I recommend that you go in our on-demand section of BrokersAlliance.com. It is huge, and watch those two shows by Tom. He breaks it out. Tom, we're talking about objections. Listen, you're going to face objections. They could be about the company. They could be about the number, the price tag. It could be about you. It could be, I don't have the money. There's so many objections. We want to get into objection resolution without getting into duking it out in a verbal volleyball match. Because many times it's most like, oh, he objected, let me counterpunch. I don't want to do a counterpunch.
No. I
don't want to be duking it out with my client.
No.
So talk a little bit about objection resolution, because I'm really trying to get away from the fight. I wanted to, I love this one line. The guy who was on the air with us a couple weeks ago, he goes, this isn't for argument's sake, this is for discussion's sake. Wasn't that kinder and gentler? So talk a little bit about objection resolution.
Sure, thank you. Well, obviously, anyone who's been in sales for any length of time, you have to be prepared for those kinds of objections. And there's a lot of systems out there. There's a lot of techniques for dealing with these. I'm not trying to reinvent a wheel here. This is a technique that we've evolved over the years and found to be very, very effective. And basically, as Steve pointed out, the point here is not to duke it out. That's why I don't like the word overcoming objections, not to be politically correct, but it's simply changing the dynamic of working with your prospect. So if you think about it, the sales call is a process. It's a flow. And after introducing yourself and building a relationship, and now you're getting down into some of the details and points about yourself, your product, your company, this is when the objections typically arise. And what this technique does is we'll give you some confidence so that you're not going to be caught off guard. You're not going to be put on that so-called defensive when the prospect raises a concern about your company, your product. And let me start off by sharing that objections typically fall into some categories. I think we can pretty much say pretty much covers them. First of all, skepticism. A lot of times, something you're claiming about yourself, your product, your company, the client simply doesn't believe it. There's so much information and misinformation out there these days, particularly in the fallout from the financial problems the last couple of years. So folks have an awful lot of conceptions about us, about our business, and a lot of them aren't right. And the internet is great, but there's a lot of misinformation on there as well as information. So skepticism is a big one. Another one is simply indifference. I just don't care. I don't need what you have. I don't have a problem. I don't see any need to change what I already have. So indifference is also a big one. But one of the most challenging ones, I think, for a salesperson is what we call a drawback. A drawback simply means that the client is looking for something which, a feature, a benefit, something in your product or your company that you simply can't provide. You don't have it. So that oftentimes can be a brick wall for a lot of us. So this technique will help you to deal with some of those and help you move the sales process forward, because I think you'll all agree that, you know, it's a process. We want to move from introducing ourselves, our company, understanding the needs of the client, so we can get to the close where we can actually ask for the business. So objections can come anywhere along that road that we call the sales process.
Well, I noticed that most of our older client, our older agent base, which is my age and older, really is, we're still back at using the close at the upfront. And that doesn't work today. The information, like you said, the information is prolific. But I used to sit there and say, I'm going out to Webster's dictionary to get the official, or am I going to Wikipedia?
Right.
Yeah, and those are people writing their own what it says.
Yeah.
And I'm reading some of the definitions of Wikipedia. I'm like, what is he thinking? You know. Now I'm also looking at the denial process. People, they're denying that there's a problem, and we're kind of in La La Land. You know, I mean, you know, the Johnny Depp's movie. You know, he does Alice in Wonderland. And I'm thinking, there's half the client base right there, because we're out in a fantasy world. Do they see the need? And I love that line on one of the CNN.com money section. It goes, what? No life insurance? This little kid, right? Little baby with a rates quoted from somebody says, what? No life insurance? Like, are you out of your mind? And so there's basic denial. And I love your other part too, is there are products and features like, he heard that somewhere that he can get kind of like, this is kind of like an infomercial Kmart special, you know, where they go, but wait, there's more. No, it's not just that, it's more. It's this feature, that feature. So a lot of people, when I'm thinking about objections, and there are legitimate objections.
Oh, yes.
They're not all illegitimate.
Oh, no.
They're all not misinformation.
No.
So there's a legit, let's say all of it for our show's sake. Let's just walk into my fantasy world and pretend that everything is legit. Okay, let's just say that's not.
That's quite a leap of faith.
It is a leap of faith, yeah. But because we don't want to say basically our client base is totally delusionary, but, you know. So let's just assume that they have. Let's say misinformation. I've heard that life insurance costs too much. That would be a misinformation.
Correct.
And I would say, well, there are contracts that are very expensive.
Yes.
See, I would agree.
Yes.
But there are also ones that have really learned through their years in the business to mitigate those costs, and they're considerably cheaper.
Yes.
See, so that would be one way of mitigating it by agreeing with
And in the formula that we live in an age of acronyms, so I want to take that and kind of fit it in with this formula. We use an acronym called ECRRA, ECRRA, and what you R-A.
ECRRA.
2 R's.
2 R's.
Yes.
ECRRA.
And what Steve just demoed for us, folks, is the E, the empathy. So you raise the objection that, okay, there's these, I don't understand this, there's all these things out there, and insurance companies this, insurance companies that. Now, what I want to then do as a salesperson is demonstrate some empathy. Now, let me start off by saying that a lot of folks will say, I understand how you feel. Well, I strongly suggest we do not use that. It sounds very insincere. I'd be thinking, well, how do you know? You don't know me at all yet. And you're coming. So the way you responded was right dead on. So I can see where you're coming from. You can use words like that. I understand what you're saying here. I think I see where you're coming from. You show the empathy that you understand the client, because a lot of times some of those objections you just raised, Steve, they're legitimate. They're emotional. You know, maybe the person's been burned by someone prior to meeting with us, or been burned by a product. So there's no way I'm going to put any money into that kind of a product. You know, it'll be something like that.
Sure.
So you want to show some sort of empathy. Now, the next step is to what we call clarify. So the first C is to clarify. So you want to do that by asking a question. So if you don't mind, could you repeat that objection. That concern that you raised?
Yeah, it costs too much.
It costs too much. So I might say something. So Steve, it sounds like you're saying that the cost of what I'm suggesting is more than what you had in mind. Do I have that right?
Right.
Now, if you notice the technique I used there, I want to give back the words that I heard you say, and then I want to use what we call at the end of the sentence a tie down, because my goal in clarifying is to get you to agree. I want you to say yes. So a tie down is simply a little phrase at the end of the sentence, and you raise the inflection in your voice. Is that right? Did I hear you correctly? So you're provoking a yes from the client. Because now we're on the same page. Because if you say yes, then we're on the same understanding. So the next step then is to confirm that. So the second C is to confirm. So clarify and then confirm. So I might say something like, so Steve, it sounds like you're comparing the product that you've seen before that doesn't have a return of premium with the one that I'm showing you that has a return of premium. Am I correct there? Am I correct?
Yeah, he never mentioned there was a return of premium feature.
Well, I'm just saying yes.
Right.
I'm just saying that if we were, if an agent had showed you, a term policy without it, and now I come in with a return of premium, and I'm obviously going to be a little bit more expensive. So I want to confirm that that is exactly what the objection is. Another way to use that is to what we call isolate. I want to isolate that out. I want to be sure that it's not just a smokescreen. Sometimes objections can be very emotional, and they're not really founded on something firm. So that by confirming what I heard and what you told me, I'm basically isolating that. So now I can resolve it. And this is what many folks skip. They skip the clarification and the confirming, and then they go right to resolve. They hear the objection. Oh, well, yours is just too much more expensive than the other one. Oh, well, let me show you why it isn't. But now we're in kind of an adversarial. I'm kind of defending now, rather than kind of let's draw it out into a conversation. So now I can resolve it. I can say, well, Steve, based on what you shared with me in terms of what you're looking for in a policy, I think you'll see that over time you'll probably outlive the term period of this contract. So we're going to give you that money back, and I think you'll see that by paying a little bit extra with that return of premium feature, you're actually going to receive more money at the back end because you're more likely outlive this contract. And
we want to be able to talk and make our clients feel comfortable. We come back in the second segment, we're going to keep talking about this whole ECRRA, right? This whole idea, so you can understand what we're talking about. You're listening to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that focuses on insurance in your practice. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Steve Savant here. For years I've heard that less than 2% of all term life insurance ends in a claim. That's not many, and clients had to die to receive the benefits. That's the old term insurance. Now start selling the new insurance. The term insurance that covers your client through a chronic illness, a catastrophic event, or a terminal diagnosis, and pays their monthly premium during extended periods of unemployment. What term life insurance can do all that? Western Reserve Alliance Advantage Term with living benefits. No other term insurance product bundles so many solutions to life's unexpected problems. And all in one policy. So for more information, call Brokers Alliance 1-800-290-7226. Stop selling the old term. Start selling the new.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that focuses on insurance in your practice. I'm Steve Savant, your host, financial color commentator, and interviewer extraordinaire. Where I want to remind everyone that you can always watch this show and all our shows on Vimeo, YouTube, the Insurance Newsnet, Agent Navigator, and BrokersAlliance.com on our on-demand section. And of course, check us out all on our social networks, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and where I blog, the Insurance Forum. And remember, our email address, if you want to write us on anything on the show, is thebiz@brokersalliance.com, or you can call us 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. And remember, I'm not a tax or legal advisor, although I sound like one. And before you moving forward with any of our strategies, always check in with your CPA or attorney. And if you're with a broker-dealer, always check with compliance before going forward with anything you hear about on our show. Today, of course, again, we have Tom Anderson from AG Life Companies out of Houston, Texas, and we're in the middle of talking with his acronym about the 5 steps to resolving objections called ECRRA. Man, I just want to go ECRRA, read all about it. No, I just, and we're on the restate. We're having fun on this show, and one of the reasons we like this entertaining way of teaching is because we want our people to really listen to this and have fun with this. And one of the areas that we're trying to do is gain referral. We did that in our show. Now we're trying to learn how to address objections And this process, ECRRA kind of walks us through it. And I'm just going to have to show this on the air. We have all the slides, documents on all this. So all you have to do is call us, 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, and we'll send you this complete boilerplate to walk through objections. Once you get this into your system, it'll become second nature. But until that happens, this will be your track to run on. Really, that's what we're doing it for.
Exactly.
Now, at the break, we left, we're talking about restate. Right? We're going to restate. So you've gotten past the clarification point of view.
Correct.
Now we're restating it.
Yes. And just to use the example and walk you all through the entire example here, the objection was that the price for a policy proposal that I showed Steve was more than what he expected to pay. However, I showed him one with a return of premium feature. It was a term policy, let's say, to cover a mortgage. So it's a very limited time need. And most likely he'll outlive that time frame of the policy. So the return of premium gives him an opportunity to recover all that money, which could be used for something else. So clearly, in this case, the objection is kind of a misunderstanding, if you want to frame it as a type of objection that, in this case, we're talking about. So my job as a salesperson is to try and resolve that misunderstanding and show him that by investing a little bit more in premium now, he'll be able to get get it all back later on. So my goal at this step is to be sure and to restate that and give that back to him. So I might say something like this. So Steve, as I showed you a moment ago, the contract that you were thinking about did not include the return of premium. And as we agreed, since the purpose of the insurance is to cover the mortgage for the next 18 years, likely you will outlive that. So the return of premium feature gives you the opportunity to get all that money back. And that's the difference in cost that you're referring to. So by restating that, I'm basically, and if you notice, he's nodding, so he's agreeing that that is exactly what the concern he had at this point in the sales process really is. Now the last step, the A in the ECRRA, is to ask. In other words, you want to be sure that you have clarified and you finish with that objection because you want to move on. I've not come to a close yet. I've not actually asked him for the business, so I want to be sure we've gotten past that. And this is often another mistake that salespeople make. So I might say something like this. So Steve, have we resolved that to you? Are we pretty clear on that? Does that make sense, what I just explained to you? See, I want to ask him, and if he answers in the affirmative, now I can move on. I can now move on to continue in the process. I may now want to move to ask him for the application or go to the close. But if I don't do this, and it's still lingering in his mind that this is still bothering me a little bit, it could sabotage me later on. So that's why I think it's important that each of those 5 steps in the process are covered.
So we have to empathize, clarify, confirm, restate, resolve, and ask. And again, we have this all boilerplate. Just call us at 1-800-290-7226. We'll send you this. Or, of course, you can always just email at us at the show's email address, thebiz@brokersalliance.com. Say, I want the 5 steps of resolving objections. We'll do it. Now, when we're talking about, I've resolved those 5. We haven't went to the close yet.
Correct.
We're just resolving issues. Boy, I'm thinking like this show could be a talk show on just resolving people's issues.
Yes.
I mean, this is Freud on financial steroids. You know, this whole idea, because it's really psychological. Really,
it is. It's all psychological.
I mean, we're talking about objections, thinking that they're objective and they're really emotional flags.
Many times they are, and many times they're misunderstandings or they're skepticism about a claim or a feature that I've presented to you. You may simply not believe it, or you may be indifferent to it. It may not mean anything to you.
I've noticed men, just as a male and female yin and yang, I've noticed that men will kind of say, I got it, and they may not want to say they don't got it.
Correct.
Whereas I've noticed that women will stop you and they'll actually be asking you, honestly, I'm not getting this.
Yes.
And you have to retread your tire on this issue to make sure, hey, I have to do this. Where the guys, we're not going to stop you. Just get through it, so I can say no, right? So we're I think sometimes I'll appeal if I have husband and wife. I'm going to appeal to the wife because if she has any questions, she's actually going to flush it out. Where he doesn't want to say, I don't know.
That's correct.
I didn't get it.
That's correct. But that's why I think what you just pointed out, Steve, is why it's so important to ask. In your case, each of the two of the couple, can we move on? Have we pretty much resolved this? Does anyone have any other questions about the pricing because it'll linger. It'll come back.
And I just want to encourage all of us, because now that our whole society has changed, when you're addressing a couple, you better be addressing dad and mom, male and female, and especially if we're talking dual income, you better be addressing both people equally and satisfying the yin and the yang of the bookend issues here, because it's going to be an issue of whether you close the sale or not. I've noticed that the best closers that we have today are people that actually know how to use what I call corporate courtship language towards women purchasers. That's an issue right there, and I want to make sure walk through ECRRA as you said it, especially in that scenario, so I can really unpack what am I trying to do here and how valuable it is for the client.
Sure, because otherwise you've got a roadblock in your sales process. And if you think about all the steps that it took to get you to actually present your product, your sale, at the point there, you don't want to miss this, because now it could blow everything up.
Yeah, I have many agents say, hey, I have enough people to talk to, I'm just not good in an interview, right? I don't even know the process. And it is a process. For people who have been around, we have already went through the School of Hard Knocks, and what Tom has been doing here with American General, they have actually walked through, thousands of agents and interviews to try to distill down, here we've noticed, here's a process, here's a system. And you don't have to go through the School of Hard Knocks like we did, and you can learn this again, especially if you're younger coming into our business. Yes. This is exactly what you do. Again, we'll supply all this to you. Just contact us. We're happy to do it. When you talk about the 3 possible outcomes, I'm looking at your script here, and I'm looking at sometimes this prospect isn't our prospect.
Correct.
We have to just say, okay, we really isn't a person a fit for us, and that's okay. Yes. That's not a wrong thing, right?
Yes, and I think by really looking at that up front, what are the possible outcomes of this process? In other words, I've either been able to move the relationship forward. I've resolved that objection, and now I can move to the close. That would be the most optimum outcome. That's what I want, obviously. Now, I may not. There may still be some issues there. So the ECRRA process may have to be repeated several times in the same sales call. And that's why I think it's important to be sure that you've isolated at least that particular objection. In this case, it was a price one, or a misunderstanding about pricing that came up. There may be others. There may be, I read the financials on your company. I'm just not comfortable with that. Person may not be comfortable with you for some reason. So this could play out several times, but at least you'll know that you've not moved it forward. And as you point out, Steve, this couple in this case, they may not be clients. So that points back to what we talked about earlier about having enough prospects, having enough people to see, and enough activity going on that it's not make or break this one particular case.
Do you think, but based on what you're talking about, Tom, is it really true in the old days, in this theory of trying to close on the first interview, is that really dead then? Well,
I say buyer beware. There are one-call closes. So, for instance, if you responded to a mailer or some message that I sent out there, and I come and meet with you, and you tell me, hey, Tom, look, I understand you like to go through a process. You want to learn about me, my financial needs. You want to do a needs now. But you know what? I just need $500,000 of coverage to cover my mortgage for the next 12 years, 15 years. That's all I want. So, am I going to give you what you want? Am I going to do that, or am I going to say, no, Steve, we got to sit down and go through this?
Well, this is the flip side of what I call the financial planning debacle.
Yeah.
He asked me for one thing, term insurance to cover a time-certain event. It is what it is. Right. I might want to satisfy his request. Correct. Or no. I have to go through a full-blown plan. Now, yes. Of course, I want to go through a full-blown plan. I want to do my planning correctly. But sometimes, some sales are actually what they seem to be, a commodity sale. Yes. And the client asks for it. Maybe at the delivery of the policy, I might be able to get a back to second base, because I do want to do thorough financial planning. Yes. But sometimes he asked me for term. Yes. And I'm just going to give him the quote.
Now, the reason I call it a red flag, too, is this person could be shopping. He may be knowingly have problems. Right. And so he's looking to see, well, who can I snare to get this done for me? But on the positive side, yes, I might be thinking, well, you know what? If I give Steve what he wants right now, build up some trust, get to know them a little bit, then yes. I'm looking around, I can see, this guy, he's pretty well established in his career. He's about the right age that I'd like to work with. I might like to have this person as a client. So yes, I think you've got to use your judgment.
One of the top closes that I've been seeing a lot of our agencies in prospecting, especially with brand new people that hardly know, is the only reason that I got a referral from you is because I thought I might be able to do what I did for your friend.
Right.
And what that was all I want to do is, we might be able to save you a little money on your term insurance, but I don't know if you're aware of this, but we do full-blown Chem 24 exams, blood work, all at our expense. If we save you money, that'll be great, but you'll also get your HDL ratio, your cholesterol, and all of a sudden now we're fronting the paramed almost at equal status of selling the term if we can save money.
Yes.
And most people are like, wow, I'd like to know. I think most of America, I want to know my HDL. I want to know my cholesterol. Yes. I want to know my bad boy issues, or if there is any. I kind of want to know that. And now all of a sudden it's on this par of the actual product. The actual qualification process is almost as important as the product we're selling. Yep. So sometimes I like little things like that because that gets you in front. And then you can, yes, I can do full-blown planning. I'm a person that can bring in retirement thinking, estate thinking, business succession planning, all those issues. And sometimes I think we try to shove that down the pipe too much.
We want
too
it
fast.
all at once.
That's right. And the client just says, I just want a term to cover my mortgage, as you said.
For now.
Unbelievable. Well, Tom, we're going to have you back on the show because this is great information, especially for our up-and-coming people that are coming into the business. This is the kind of practice we want to start to get you into. Remember, you can write to me at our show. Any questions, we'll send you all the material. thebiz@brokersalliance.com, or call us 1-800-290-7226. Extension 147, or our website, www.brokersalliance.com. I'm Steve Savant. You're listening to the Business Insurance Zone. That's the buzz on the biz for today. Get into the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse and Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. You can contact Brokers Alliance at brokersalliance.com or 1-800-290-7226, extension 147.